What's up, guys? So just last week I posted a video kind of showing you guys what the day in the life is like as a real estate agent. I work in commercial real estate, but I showed you what an office day is typically like. But keep in mind, there's days where we're out touring, there's days where we're working from home, and then there's days where it's kind of a combination of all three. And while it may look like a really fun job, and it is, there's definitely a lot of upsides about it, there are also some downsides that a lot of people don't realize prior to getting into it. So what are the true downsides of being a real estate agent? And what are maybe some things you're not thinking about if you are considering getting into it? Now, if you're thinking about getting your real estate license or you haven't gotten it yet, I did make a full video kind of explaining what to expect going through the real estate licensing process and how to even speed it up so you can get it even quicker. So you may want to go check that video out and then come back to this one. It might kind of help you better understand the process prior to watching this video. But again, if you're thinking about getting into real estate, here's kind of the top 10 downsides to real estate that a lot of people don't think about. And keep in mind, even though I'm in commercial, a lot of these will apply to residential as well. So depending on which path you're trying to go, these are going to be very applicable. So starting with number 10, which is late payments. This is something that happens extremely frequently, especially in the leasing side of the business. It happens less frequently on the escrow side of the business because there's usually a set close date and the funds are held in an escrow account, which are then distributed as commissions post-closing. But again, escrows can still be delayed. So on the leasing side, when you do a leasing deal, especially in commercial real estate, you usually get paid on two different dates. You get paid when the contract is signed, and it's usually half, and then you get paid when the company or business, aka the tenant, opens for business. So there's two different structures to getting paid. Now, that first little bucket of getting paid when the contract's signed, it may not actually happen until they waive contingencies, which can be months out. Honestly, sometimes even years. There's a deal that I did in 2018. It's the end of 2024 at the time of filming this video, and I still have yet to be paid a cent on it. So unfortunately, even if you have a commission agreement, there are times where it's just going to be delayed on the leasing side. And sometimes you don't even get paid until the tenant opens for business completely. And that can be even further out because they have to build out their space. Now, on the sales side, when you're in escrow, which is going to be more common with resi agents, especially because you're buying and selling homes, usually there's a set close of escrow date to which you're going to get paid. It's when everything is settled and recorded, funds are distributed, and part of that is the commission payment that's going to you. Now, I work with a hotel group that takes over a year to close escrow. So when you actually open escrow, I know that I'm not getting paid for a full year from that date, at least. Late payments are not only annoying, but they also make your life really challenging because if you're trying to budget and manage your own money and you think you have money coming in on a certain date and then it gets pushed, it can really upend your own personal finances. So when you're just starting out in the business and you're only closing a couple deals, you got to really pay close attention to this. It doesn't matter as much down the road when you have a lot coming in, but when you're first starting out, it can be a big issue. Moving on to number 9, which kind of aligns with number 10, and that is the nature of the business being cyclical. So real estate has cycles, and if you're thinking about getting into real estate, you're definitely going to want to learn more about this because, on the resi side, the summer, for example, is a better selling and buying time than the winter in most situations. And then in commercial, whether you're in office, industrial, retail, multifamily, all of those have cycles. For example, office brokers were loving life leading up to 2019 until in 2020, COVID hit, and then all of a sudden the office market faced a major implosion. And it's still recovering to this day. So for the last 5 or so years, they have really struggled. But before that, things were great. Same can be said about retail. Retail's doing really well right now, but 10, 15 years ago, it wasn't, when everything was moving online and people weren't sure if retail stores were going to make it. Same with multifamily. Multifamily was doing really well when rates were low, but now with rates being high, it's slowed down considerably. So every side of the business has a cycle, and depending on which area of expertise you go into, you're going to need to pay attention to what that cycle is and try and monitor it the best you can. Now, nobody can predict the future, so you don't really know when it's going to hit, but there are indicators that can kind of point to how your certain area of the industry is doing, so you can better prepare yourself for future slowdowns. And how do you better prepare yourself? Well, you get more business, right? And that actually leads to number 8. So number 8 is probably one that you've already heard about. It's called cold calling, and it is definitely a part of the business that really sucks. Especially when you're first starting out and you're a little bit nervous on the phones, or maybe you don't know what to say because you're new to real estate and you don't exactly know how it all works yet. When you're kind of thrown into the firing line and trying to figure out cold calling on your first attempt, it can be very daunting. And a lot of people struggle with cold calling, especially early on. It's a skill that can be very valuable for this line of work. So watching cold calling videos on YouTube, or there's even books about it to try and better yourself at it, you're gonna get a leg up when you first get into the industry because it's something that you have to do. Even in today's modern age where we have email, social media, etc. Yeah, you can definitely use those to your advantage to help with the cold calling by going the digital route, but nothing is gonna compare to the old fashioned, just picking up the phone and dialing for dollars, which is essentially what you're doing, unfortunately. As you build your book of business, you're gonna get more and more referrals, so cold calling won't be as important, but early on, it's gonna be something that you just have to do and there's no way around it. So if that's something you really don't think you can bring yourself to do, then you need to question this as a career route, because that is something, no matter what side of the business you go into, you're gonna end up doing. Now, number 7 is tracking sheets and repetitive desk work. So this kind of just falls into the entire category of documents. Whether it's a tracking sheet for clients where you're tracking deals, especially if you have high velocity where you're doing a lot of deals. I have one client that does 60 deals a year, so it's a lot of tracking. Or it's just submitting the offers and drafting the offers and everything else. It can be a lot of paperwork in real estate no matter what side you're on. As you get more and more experienced, you'll get faster and faster at doing these, repetitive documents. And as you have certain clients that have their own documents, you'll learn how to get through those even quicker. But at the end of the day, there's really no shortcut to doing documents. I mean, you can't use AI or anything like that. You really got to pay attention and make sure you're putting all the right terms in here, because these are huge transactions for hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. And it would be doing the client a disservice if you use AI or something else to fill these out. So you have to be good at filling out documents. You're almost like a quasi attorney. I mean, you're not, but you need to know how to read legal language when you're basically formulating and countering on these documents. At the end of the day, the attorney is going to help solidify the deal, especially in commercial. You're going to get an attorney involved when you get to the lease or the PSA process. But up front, when you're negotiating the non-binding agreements, it's going to be on you to really decipher the text and make sure that you're inputting what is appropriate for these different documents. So again, it can be really repetitive and very time consuming. A lot of my day is spent drafting these documents, but at the end of the day, it's something that you have to do, so you need to be ready for that. So number 6 I threw in here because this was one that I wasn't expecting when I got into the industry, and I think a lot of people don't realize how much it actually costs. Now, granted, with Lululemon and kind of the athleisure and COVID and just the scaling back of what you have to wear to the office, this isn't as severe as it used to be. But number 6 is dry cleaning and the cost of clothing. Now, keep in mind, real estate is a pretty formal business, so you're gonna be suited up, you're gonna be getting clothes dry cleaned, and you're gonna be looking nice for a lot of different reasons. It could be client meetings, it could be showings, it could be tours, it could be pitching new business. I mean, it could even be Zoom calls. Like I have to wear a suit for certain Zoom calls. So you're gonna have to invest in your wardrobe. And not only that, you're gonna have to invest in keeping your wardrobe nice through dry cleaning, tailoring, and everything else that comes with it. Before I worked in real estate, I was in advertising, and we just wore kind of whatever we wanted to the office because it was a creative office. But once I flipped over to real estate, I was shocked at how expensive it actually was to upkeep not only all the clothing, but also to invest in the suits and everything else that I needed up front to not only get the interviews, but then also start doing my day job. If you watch my day in the life video, then you probably saw that the dress code has scaled back significantly just following COVID and just with the industry in general just getting a little bit more casual, but it's still very business focused and you're still gonna have to dress nice. So number 4 is email, and this is a broad category, but the reason why I put this here is because real estate's interesting. You have to be out in the field to learn the real estate, to tour clients and all of that, but then you also have to be at your desk to get everything done and handle email. So you're always constantly balancing the two. So for example, I do a lot of tours up in LA and I'm in Orange County. And depending on traffic, I mean, it could be anywhere from a 2-hour trip to a 4-hour trip or longer if I leave at the wrong time. If it ends up being a 4-hour trip or longer, or ends up being pretty much the entire day up there, when I get back, I still have all of those documents, all of that email, and everything else that I need to get through that I missed while I was out on the road. And for whatever reason, real estate email just builds up really fast. Between all the clients, all the listings that are emailed to you, and everything in between, you just have a ton of email. So if you hate checking email, this is definitely not the industry for you, because I kid you not, I get thousands of emails a day that I have to go through. And again, if you're out touring or showing space, they only build more and more while you're out for some reason. I don't know why, it just seems like there's always a mountain of email when I get back. So it's definitely a downside that a lot of people don't realize, is that you have to really learn how to balance and be efficient at your job, because there are gonna be times where you can't respond to email because you're out in the field doing tours or inspections or whatever else. And that leads into number 3, which is real estate work is not 9 to 5. I've never had a 9 to 5 day. There's been days where I leave the office before 5 because it's a really slow day, and then there's been days where I've stayed at the office, past 10 p.m. But on top of that, if you watch the day in the live video, I do a lot of email at night as well. So again, I mean, on a typical day, you're going to the office early, you're either there all day or parts of the day, or you're out touring or doing whatever else, working on documents, etc. And I usually try and go to the gym, have dinner with the wife and hang out for a little while, and then I'm back online checking email and everything else just to make sure I'm staying on top of it before I go into the next day. This includes weekends. I work on the weekends. This includes off hours when you may get texts or calls from clients. And this also includes vacations, because again, you are generating your own income. So you always have to be on, you always have to stay on top of everything. I can't think of a single vacation, even when I went to Africa, where I wasn't checking email and wasn't staying on top of client needs. If you're on a team, it definitely helps because people can kind of help cover for you while you're out. But at the end of the day, you're still gonna have a lot of work to do, even if you're on vacation or if you're out sick. So it is definitely not a 9 to 5 job. You are not salaried, and you need to be prepared for that, because that just kind of comes with the territory. And that leads into number 3, which is you eat what you kill. So we say this all the time, you eat what you kill, right? you are commission-based, you're 100% commission, usually after your first or second year, if you're lucky enough to get a starting salary at whatever firm you join. So it's on you to build your book of business, close your book of business, and bring in that income. Nobody else is gonna do it for you. So going back to what I just mentioned about you're always on and it's not a 9 to 5, yeah, you're really working all the time to close these deals. There's gonna be times of the season where it's busier than others or you have higher velocity than others. Like usually in January, we have a lot of kickoff meetings with our clients to kind of discuss, trajectory and the game plan for this year on the real estate strategy. But then there's also, the summer months, at least for commercial, where it's a little bit more dead. But with resi, I mean, you're on fire in the summer. That's when all your showings are. That's when a lot of deals are closing. So depending on which area you go into, there's gonna be times of the year that's a little bit quieter than others. But for the most part, you're always gonna be busy working on client work and trying to better your book of business, grow your portfolio of clients, and really just close deals at the end of the day. Because again, you don't get paid until the deal closes. You don't have a base salary, usually, in most situations. And so along those lines is number 2, and that is the starting salary or pay. So if you are lucky enough to get a starting salary or pay at the firm that you start at, which again, the bigger ones are probably more likely to pay that because they have it budgeted in, but the smaller firms probably are not. You're just gonna get thrown on a team or kind of just hit the ground running. Either way, don't be expecting a huge salary. I mean, my starting hourly pay when I first started out was so low that I qualified for food stamps. I mean, it was terrible. I was barely making rent. I was barely able to afford food and groceries and everything else. I was scraping by. I was doing some side hustles to help with that, such as stock photography. Made a whole video about that as well. But again, I mean, the first year is really rough. You don't have any clients yet. You haven't learned the business yet, so you can't even speak to it. And in general, I mean, it's just a lot of work to really get up and running. For most people, it's gonna take 6 to 12 months to really start seeing some income. Because remember, real estate deals take time. So even if you start doing deals on day 1, probably the earliest to which you would start getting commission is 30 to 60 days at least. But in most scenarios, it's gonna be 6 to 12 months before you start seeing some real income. So be prepared for that going in. Try and have some savings going into it because you'll definitely need to lean on it. And that leads me to number 1, which is income in general. So as mentioned, when you first start out, you are not gonna be making a lot of money and you shouldn't expect to. But the income in general can go like this. I mean, there can be months where you're bringing in 20, 30, 50, 60, even more $1,000. I've had a month where I brought in over $100,000. But then I've also had months in a row where I brought in $0. So you have to get really good at budgeting and managing your own money against your income. And usually firms have tracking sheets or they have an online deal tool that kind of helps track what you should be having come in. But again, with extensions and delays, you really never truly know when those paychecks are gonna come in. So income in real estate is unlike any other job for the most part because it's all commission based. Okay, so if you're coming from a salaried position, then you need to be ready to have a completely different income structure and be able to manage your life on that accordingly. And this can be a big adjustment for a lot of people. A lot of people are not ready for this going in. And honestly, I think that this is the root cause for a lot of failure for most people. Even if they're starting to get some momentum with getting clients, getting income, they just haven't fully figured out how to manage that income to a way that works for their lifestyle. I mean, if you have a mortgage to pay, if you have a car payment, if you have kids, if you have a lot of expenses and you have an expensive lifestyle, this adjustment can be really tough for you. So before you get into real estate, do some homework, figure out how much you need to live, and make sure you set aside some savings before you get into it until you figure out how to manage that new income style because it can be a huge adjustment for a lot of people. Well guys, these are 10 categories that I kind of thought were the main ones to really think about, but there are other downsides as well, and I can do a follow-up video if you guys would like me to, let me know in the comments. But overall, again, it can be a very lucrative and fun career, but there are a lot of downsides that people don't really talk about online. I think a lot of people sell the sexiness of being an agent online. On YouTube, they talk about how much money they make or what kind of cars they drive or what kind of real estate they're working on, but not really telling you the downside. So I wanted to do this video to give you guys a true picture of what to expect before you really get into the industry because it can be a daunting first few months if you don't know what to expect. Again, it takes 2 to 6 months to really ramp up your income at least, if not longer. So be prepared for that and have a safety net going in. I had a bit of savings from my last job ready to go because I knew it was gonna be bad. And I went through all of it by the time I actually started making money. So it definitely got a little scary for a couple months. And that's where the side hustles really came into handy. But if you wanna get a true sense for what to expect, I have a bunch of videos on my channel already kind of showing you a day in the life, how to get your license, videos like this on kind of the drawbacks. I have more coming out soon on kind of what income to expect, as well as just general real estate topics that you can look through as well, like real estate investing. I flipped homes and apartments, I own apartments. So there's a lot of stuff on my channel that you can go check out and kind of get immersed in before you make that switch. But again, depending on which route you go, whether it's real estate investing, commercial, residential, I mean, there's so many different areas of real estate that you can go into, and it can be a very lucrative and exciting career choice. But again, there are some drawbacks, so just keep those in mind before you hop in. Well guys, that's it for today's video. Thanks so much for watching this far along. If you'd consider subscribing or hitting the like button, I'd really appreciate it. Helps grow the channel and get videos like this out to more viewers. But anyway, that's it for today's video. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.